Hey everyone, welcome back to Tactical Magic. This is Molly Mandelberg, your host, and I'm here with another great friend of mine, Amber Jane Arquette. And Amber Jane has been on the show before, but she has so much magic that it was important that we have her on the show again. I know Amber Jane to be a absolute wonder of a person, a wild creator, a earthen fairy fae kind of creature, and so intuitive and tuned in and just present. And I really appreciate that in a person. So hang tight. We're going to have a probably very magical conversation for you here today, and we'll be back in just one sec.
It's not just about mastering technology. It's not just about brand or messaging. It's not just about making more money. It's about showing up in a big way so your people can find you. This is about bringing your most wild and authentic self into the hustle and grind. Welcome to Tactical Magic, a business strategies podcast for the warrior goddess entrepreneur.
Awesome. So Amber Jane has helped hundreds of people reclaim soul pieces, reunite with those who have passed from this life, and resolve and remedy broke, repetitive patterns, often across lifetimes, so that they can embody their greatness and personal power. She is passionate about personal sovereignty and has particular skills in curse unraveling and soul stealing. She believes that we all have a right to live our best life on the edge of our creative genius, or simply to live a beautiful life open to more possibilities. Through her psychic readings and channeled guidance subscriptions, her clients find efficiency, clarity, and confidence to manifest their desired goals or move through change and transformation in their life, which we will talk about more on this podcast. She offers in-person and virtual sessions across the globe, from Portland, Oregon, where she lives on a quarter acre in the middle of the city. Amber Jane, her husband, and her daughter are surrounded by tall trees, tending to flower and vegetable gardens and chickens. Welcome to the show, Amber Jane.
Mm-hmm. Which I just learned that we're on a half acre.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was like, oh, wow, cool. That's why it feels so big.
Yeah. Awesome. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here.
Yeah, I'm so glad to talk with you, Molly, because it is magical every time we chat.
Yeah.
It's like the messages that are needing and wanting to be heard and enliven people come through. So totally. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. And for anybody who usually, if you're listening to this podcast, I won't say religiously, but regularly, you can go back to Amber Jane's past episode where I ask her the standard usual question I ask, which is, how did you become an entrepreneur? How has that journey been from you? We're going to skip that question today because that's already been documented. And I want to dive into some of the magic that you bring to the world, because you have intuitive gifts. You have what we call psychic powers. And I know there's a lot of people out there who may have preconceived notions or even judgments about what being psychic is, or what having psychic capacities means or is, or it can be like, as both a holder of that energy and also as a receiver of that as a client. I know there's plenty of movies and stuff depicting it a certain way. So tell us what it's like for you and how you do it sort of differently than people may expect.
Yeah, thank you. I think the first thing was my friends kept calling me psychic, and I kept being like, oh no, I'm not one of those weirdos. I just did not. I also held the judgments and the idea that psychics were like peeping Toms, or that they would bring, scary messages, or just were weirdos that were connected to some realms that were unrelatable. And so as I was exploring, well, what does that mean? And why are people and clients calling me this, giving me this label? And so it's been a process of unpacking it. And what I've noticed is that there's a few different types of psychics. One psychic that, the people who you usually expect, where it's you get this 15, 30-minute call with them, and they are just going to tell you all these things about your life, and you gain so much. And, often it's amazing stuff. And sometimes it's even future information that later is validated. Those type of psychics usually have a spirit that they're working with that literally tell them what's going on, which can be incredibly cool. And then there's other people like me who are more reading the energies of things and getting channeled guidance from like a higher perspective. So sometimes I'm tapping into your higher perspective or your intuitive, what I would call the true self, that self that kind of chose to be here, whereas you're in your humanness a little bit disconnected to that. And everybody has a different relationship with that. And my guides kind of helping me see into what's happening in your life. And so when people come to a psychic reading with me, I ask them about like, well, what area of your life do you want to know about? Because we can ask really general questions and we'll get really general answers. But if we ask really specific questions or like pay attention to a certain area, then we can have more detail. And then if we get too detailed, right, then we can close off the openness. So there's this beautiful, which I know, you're familiar with, or we're both familiar with access consciousness and asking questions. So there's totally this, like, I've been learning about like, what are the questions that you ask? And so I do give some guidance on how to ask questions to get more clarity. But what I found is that I uncover like the energy or intention or something that's hidden in someone's life. I also help them find like so much validation for what they've been already feeling, because I think a lot of times it's almost like we have not been practiced or we haven't been taught or even supported in trusting our own intuitive voice and our own intuitive knowing. That's one of my favorite parts, is validating, like you're having this understanding, but what is in the way is this belief system, or what is in the way is this trauma or this soul loss. So that has been a beautiful part of the sessions that I give, is really just like kind of really helping them see something different so that they can make new choices, or so that they can have an understanding and feel more empowered from the session, and not just like, here's a whole bunch of stuff I'm going to tell you about yourself that you probably already know.
Yeah, I actually received a channeling session recently, and I really resonate with that, because when we're walking through our lives, and even those of us, I consider myself a pretty intuitive and aware person, and a very self-aware person. So I tend to be able to see, oh, what's the higher lesson in something that's happening to me, or how it kind of makes sense that I feel this certain way, and like how it's reasonable or justified, or, through my programming, I can see the pattern of where that feeling or that way of being has arisen, and I can look at it and ask questions about it. And sometimes having a person who can see more of you than you're capable of seeing is really helpful. It's really insightful. I had a breakup a few months ago, and so I was asking some questions about that in this session, and they gave me a perspective that I wouldn't have seen myself. I didn't see it myself. I've been processing it for months, and I was only looking at it through this one lens of like, here's why I'm still stewing on this person or this breakup or whatever. And that new insight not only gave me a new way to see things, which is what you do for your clients, it also gave me choices of like, I can interact with this energy in a different way now. And that's such a gift to have a blind spot of yours be shed light on by someone with intuitive gifts that can see you in a way that you can't see yourself, because we're just in these human bodies most of the time, kind of tunnel visioning. I'm imagining like a horse with blinders on. We can see this one direction, but if somebody can come and see around our blinders and tell us what else is going on there, it can be so helpful. And not to say any one way of seeing things is more right or more reasonable or, can be judged more accurate in some way, but it can be helpful to just have that scope of your reality widened by someone else who's willing to go there and be there with you in a really compassionate and really healing way. And the sessions I've had with you, Amber Jane, have also had that sense of, oh, I was looking at my life right here in this one direction. And it's almost like the horizon line just spread out and expanded to now there's more information here for me to work with. There's more information for me to be present to, so that I can see who I want to be in a different way, or how I'm interacting with my life right now in a different way, and then choose to elevate with more ease that way. I also want to bring up the idea, because you mentioned it again, the concept of soul loss or soul pieces. So that can sound really scary to someone, to feel like, oh no, I'm broken, I'm unwhole. Or, will you speak to that a little bit and how it's not actually that scary or weird?
Yeah, for sure. And what's coming up to me, to be like really transparent honest, is that I'm graduating with a bachelor's in core shamanism. Shamanism is this really funny word right now in the spiritual and healing realms, because some people think of it as like a dogma, like a religious set of beliefs or like a style of something. Other people are maybe misusing the word or using the word because they're using energy medicine, but core shamanism is something pretty specific and actually is really wide open in some ways. And so when we talk about soul loss and, and soul pieces, I like to use the language of soul healing, because to me, that's a little bit more like, okay, I'm working on my spirit self. I'm working on, when we use the word energy medicine, we're working on the energetics. So I was just actually writing something up the other day to help understand that, we can do the mental work. It's kind of like the lost part of holistic healing. So we can do the mental work, we can do the emotional work, we can do the physical work. But if we don't pay attention to the energetics there, we can be kind of caught in loops or cycles or patterns in our life that it's like, oh my gosh, I've dealt with relationships with my mother for years and years and years. Why hasn't it changed? I've done all of this. And it's like, well, we didn't go in and clear the energetic pattern. And what I mean by energetic pattern, it's almost like, especially in relationship, it's like two people have these threads and they weave a blanket together. And so that blanket is in place. It's a tangible, energetic thing. And so when we want to separate as two people in a relationship or clear out, the funk, the old, the dusty, we want to wash the blanket, we need energy medicine. And so we unravel that, or we clear it out. But specifically, when you're asking about soul pieces and soul retrieval, is that anytime that we have an accident, a surgery, a trauma, a breakup, a heartache, a shock, there's sometimes a level of like, have you ever heard that expression of like, I jumped out of my skin?
Mm-hmm.
Or when you're really frightened, like there's this shock and then you come back into your body. That is what we call soul loss. Like it's literally a piece of your energy signature that is like almost dropping on the floor. Like think of breaking a bone and, the physical part of the bone break, your emotional trauma of it. And then there's this energetic like jump of that bone. And we can pull all of that energy back in and the body can have miraculous healing. And I've actually seen this like with hives, and my daughter's teeth is like this huge story that I'm recording right now, mm-hmm. of watching her miraculous healing happen through doing soul retrievals. So soul retrieval has so much to do with bringing your energy back into yourself. And people might be like, well, I feel grounded, or I feel like I have all of myself here, because we have our awareness. But think of those times when you feel overwhelmed, like you're working on a project over here, some family issue is coming up, you had a conversation earlier, your email box is asking for things, maybe there's a bill that needs to be paid. All of those are energetic connections to all of these things outside of yourself. And we can start to feel overwhelmed and ungrounded. And when we call all of that just consciously back, like, okay, I'm not putting any energy into fixing that right now. That'll come later. And we get present, and that peacefulness that we feel in just that practice of becoming present, that's a calling back of our energy. But when we do that in the way of soul retrieval, it can be from another lifetime, where maybe you had this contract of servitude where, maybe you were a nun in a church and you were like, I don't need anything, because I am just going to have this relationship with spirit and God. And so it's almost like this soul contract of, I'm not going to have things. I'm not going to have desires. I'm just going to allow, God to work through me. And then you come into this lifetime and you're like, why can't I have anything? Why can't I stop serving others and start to take care of myself? Right? Because that's that contract that worked in that lifetime doesn't apply to this lifetime. And so when we call that energy out of the contract and back into the sovereignty of you, your whole world opens up and you're allowed. It's like this self-allowance in a way or energetic allowance to open up that horizon and that possibility.
Yeah.
The new things. Yeah.
It can be so powerful. And there's just so much we're not aware of that those moments have happened in this lifetime and in whatever other lifetimes for people who believe in that. I do, but I know there might be people out there who don't, that it could be some trauma in your childhood that you don't even recall where a part of you walked out. I had that experience where there's a bad stepfather that I was raised with, and a part of me walked out back then. And it wasn't until my early 30s that I recognized, you know what, a little part of me left and has been not hanging out in my body. Mm-hmm. And once I had that awareness, I was like, okay, we need to have a conversation, babe. Like, come back in. Yeah. It's safe now. I'm here. I've got you. I will be the adult that you need in this moment because I want you here with me. Mm-hmm. And have that conversation with that younger self or that past life self or whatever to resynthesize. And tell us a little bit about what life is like when you have those pieces back, because it's different than living without them. What's that difference?
Mm-hmm. What's that difference? Well, I'm a perfect example. Like, I'm the poster child of soul retrieval, right? And I think that comes with, like, what do you want to do in your life? Well, you figure
the work I'm doing on myself. Yeah.
So for me, I couldn't distinguish between myself and others. I'm a highly intuitive empath, which I'm learning. Empaths often have undeveloped, unmastered, and unacknowledged psychic gifts because they're actually reading so many things. A lot of times I felt like I witnessed my life, or I made decisions because there was such contradiction. I wanted to do this, but I also wanted to do that. I've had a feeling that I couldn't express myself fully. And I had a lot of fear that the world wasn't safe. So I had my own personal issues around worthiness, feeling enough. But most of all, like, the soul loss was allowing all these other influences to be the louder voice of the choices I made in my life versus me being the most dominant energy in my field, my intuition being the strongest voice, and me having the relationship with myself that trust. I had to rebuild trust because I thought I was making all the wrong decisions when it was there was so much influence and there was so much so lost that I didn't have enough of my power to make the best decisions for myself at the time. So I just felt like my life was really out of control. And as I have done a lot of soul retrieval and brought my vitality back into my body, I've had so much more discernment about what is right and good for me and how I can show up really authentically and in my purpose and power. So I want to give you a little example, which isn't as big as like something really profound. Like, maybe you have curse energy in your family and, like, no woman can find a good mate and you want to end that. So that might be something that we focus on. Like, what is that energy that's being hijacked that isn't allowing you to identify and make the choice to find a life partner that's fulfilling and beautiful? And you might see that generationally. So that's kind of like a lineage curse energy that we could work on. But it can also work on not getting drained by the things that we create and commit to. So I've been a facilitator for 4-month summit and then a 1-week retreat for my school for the last 4 years. And every time it ends, which we just did it, I do a vitality and soul essence retrieval from it. So I have given and I've served in this huge way, and I can feel really drained if I don't energetically take care of myself. So I do a session and I call for all of that energy to come back to me because it's already happened, right? It's already created. It's already there. Everybody has the beautiful, loving memories and the, transformation, all that stuff has already happened. So it's this present moment that I'm tending to myself. And so I'm pulling back and retrieving all of that soul essence so that I can be whole again, and then invest it in something new and create it in something new. So again, it's like accessing it's almost like, it reminds me of this story of not, have you ever heard the story of like not, or the saying of not, spilling your perfume everywhere?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, don't keep your perfume sacred, because you only have so much of it, and it's like, well, what if we didn't have so much? What if we shared our perfume and then pulled it back in? So I hope that gives a little bit more clarity.
Yeah, totally. And the way I see it is we have an infinite capacity to contribute to other people, to be participating in the world and in community and in all kinds of experiences. And that putting our attention and our energy and our awareness there and helping make things occur and bring things to life doesn't mean we have to leave that energy there. Like often when I'm leading meditations in my groups, we start out by pulling our tentacles of awareness or attention back to us. And it's like, yeah, that event happened and I was a huge, beautiful part of it. And now I'm bringing what I need from that, what I've given to that, back to me. It can be as simple as that, just that desire, that thought of, I'm bringing that back to me now. I'm going to be whole and complete again. And so that you can give it again in other ways. So it's like this infinite capacity when you're willing to recognize you don't have to leave you in places. And that doesn't mean you're going to be forgotten. That doesn't mean that you didn't contribute. It's like not a forever thing when you agree to invest your energy or attention into something.
Hey, one of the things too that popped into my head was a lot of times traditional soul retrieval has been about like, let's look at your life. And like you said, like there's this young part of you that popped out. And so we're going to pull back that soul piece. And then we're going to look at where you might have had soul loss in this lifetime. And the way that I approach soul retrieval is very in that practical, like this thing just happened yesterday or last month, and I'm going to draw my energy back so that I'm more present and powerful and I can invest in something new or create something new. In my intentions, when I'm working with the spirits, is that I'm asking for the origin point. Where did this get created? Because when we go to that origin point and we provide the healing at where it was started, we're going before all of the grievances. So if we go back into that place and we're healing it from that place and we're bringing that soul essence back to you, it has this rippling effect throughout all the lifetimes, through your Akashic records, through your soul's infinite existence, through your consciousness. And so when you do that key type of soul retrieval, it's so profound in the way that you move and feel and be in the world. And then your job is to recognize that. How am I different? That's actually one of the mantras that I love to give my clients is, how are you different now? And what are the different choices that you are going to create for yourself? Because now that you've energetically changed things, the world actually can't stay the same unless your mind decides, I'm going to keep telling the story and I'm going to keep showing up the same way, right? So a lot of times we want change, but we're unwilling to change ourselves. We want everything else to change, but we're the common denominator. So when we change, everything does change around us. And it may take a while for like the physical stuff, or it may be pretty instant. I think that that's what I love about the techniques that I have been shown, is that it's really compassionate and it's really focused on how can you have sovereignty? How can you be the strongest, most dominant wisdom in your life? And yeah, of course, we're going to get validation from other places and we're going to ask for help. I use the analogy of like a dentist doesn't do their own dentistry. But yeah, I just want to make that distinction.
Yeah, totally. And I think to go back to the beginning of this conversation, that hesitation or that maybe fear that people have about a psychic is like, oh, they're more powerful than me, or they're going to take my power in some way. And the work that you're doing is like the absolute antithesis of that. It's like, how can we empower you the most? You, the client, you, the participant, you, the one here for the work, so that you feel that dominant power. I forget exactly how you said, but the dominant wisdom in your life. That's such a beautiful gift to help people find and choose and align with and become and allow in their lives.
There's one thing I want to share that seems to come up a lot in psychic readings is that question of like, should I stay in my current resident or should I move to Florida? Or should I, be with this guy or should, we're always contemplating our choices, right? And to have that extra, like, can you just look at this for me? And what does spirit want me to do? So I have two messages for people over and over. Spirit does not delineate, is that the right word? Delineate between your choices. It's literally your choice to have an experience. And so when you're looking at, should I move here? Should I stay in this job? Should I stay in this marriage? Should I, for example, a reading that I did this week, the perspective and the uncovering of what was happening in her life. So she's been in a marriage for a long time. She has 2 kids. She has this great job, and she has just kind of been checking the boxes, right? So she feels pretty unfulfilled. She's like, wow, I did all the things. Yeah, I'm still not feeling satisfied. And she meets this man and they're having this great friendship, and all of these synchronicities happen. And she cuts it off because she can see where it's going, and she doesn't want to bring that kind of energy into her marriage and her life. So she's been cutting it off, but she's been pondering, like, am I supposed to mate with this guy and leave my marriage? And the spirits came in and said, really any of the choices you make are an experience. You can't go wrong. It's just what you really, truly desire. And then they went to show that this person was actually waking her up, that he's not a life partner for her. He's not a match in that way, but he came in at this specific moment in her life to kind of wake her up a little bit. Like there's more to life out here. And so now she's like, wow, looking at her life in a different way and getting more curious. And then the next message that came through for her is because she's been tending and caring for everybody else in her life since she was 3 years old. And she told me about this, her upbringing, and how that was how she decided to stay safe and functional. And so the message was that she actually needs to spend this next moment with all of these awakenings, I'm going to keep calling it, that happened from this gentleman, to get to know what she actually really wants. And when she has clarity of what she really wants, and that kind of like what I love about my life, what I don't love about my life, like review, then she gets to go to her family and say, hey, you know what? This is what I need. I need something to be different. Is that what you guys can show up for? And to me, it's such an empowered action to get to know your desires, your true desires, and then go to the people in your life and say, hey, can you show up for me in this way? I have a request here? I want more adventure, or I want more communication or intimacy, or I want forgiveness, or I want this thing that hasn't been talked about to be talked about. And then they have choice too. You're allowing them choice too.
Yeah.
And then it's everybody deciding together instead of you just,
dropping everything to go somewhere else. Yeah. There's an opportunity to co-create it in that way, which is so beautiful.
So I thought that was just a gorgeous message that came through for her.
Really beautiful. And I think really applicable and useful for a lot of people listening, for sure. Yeah. One of my favorite things is that we've both gotten to work with each other. And one of the ways, Amber Jane's healing sessions are absolutely amazing. Like beautiful imagery and visioning and powerful, deep work, I will just say. Definitely work with her. We'll talk about how to find her in a moment. But you've also been a part of one of my magical programs, a few of them. And one of them that you're in right now is called Peace with Money, which is the membership that follows the 4-week course about peace with money. How's that been for you?
Oh my gosh, Molly, I love this. I have, money is a thing, right? We want to have lots of it because we want to have freedom and choices and create. It feels like I've always been in that struggle and in that hustle, especially being an entrepreneur. You know, it was like, I got to keep doing the thing. I got to keep thinking about the money. I got to figure out ways to bring it in. I got to figure out ways to connect with clients, get clients, you know? Mm-hmm. So there's this like whole, almost energy matrix is what I would explain it, right? That has been the dominant influence of me feeling like I had to be hustling and not recognizing the level of financial support that I do have in my life and the level of abundance and access to resources that I do, right? So here you come along and you're helping us with meditations and, you know, practical action of like, hey, this is how to budget, or like not budget, but manage your money now that you have it. But here's all of these other ideas and understandings and also just the invitation to connect with the energy of money versus like the struggles that may come along with it. I started with at the beginning, right? So it's almost been a year.
It's been a year now. Yeah.
That struggle and that hustle that I've had right before summer, because I was looking at my schedule and my daughter's going to be out of school. So I won't have this like night, you know, the different hours. I'll have different hours. And so I was like, how do I manage this? How do I do this? We have trips. Oh no, I'm going to lose a lot of clients because I'm not going to be as available. So I went into that hustle mentality again. Like, how am I going to do this? You know, I got to manipulate all of the things to try to make this work and stay in a prosperous flow. And all of a sudden, and I totally attribute this to the calls and the activities that you have us do, I was able to look at, you know, Justin, my husband, is in a really good place right now with his business. My business is doing fine. People are coming to me all the time. Like I can open up this part of my schedule, which was closed before. I mean, and all of a sudden the efforting lifted off of me. And you talk about that all the time. And that's when I was like, oh my gosh, this is Molly's magic that I'm tapping into. And so I just have so much gratitude because I'm in this place that you talk about being in peace. And knowing that I've done the work I've set up the systems so that all of these people know who I am and know how to find me and that I'm open and receptive to receiving it without efforting so hard.
Yeah. With people just finding you as if by magic.
Yeah.
So fun. I'm so glad that you're using it and that it's working for you and that, you know, it's not about Peace with Money isn't about, am I a billionaire yet? It's about how am I residing in the energetic space with money and that there's things we can practice and things we can look at to be in a peaceful place with money. And that's actually much more magnetic and attractive to the energy of money coming into our lives than the hustle and grindy energy of where is it? It's not enough.
So I have to share 3 things.
Yeah.
So one of them was that I've been asking for like a landscaper. I need a landscaper. But what ended up happening was I had a week off with my daughter and we landscaped my garden. And I was like, oh, wow, I guess I'm the landscaper. So that was one thing that was really cool. And I set up some lights in my yard and did some other things that I just didn't have the vitality to, or the energy to. And then the other thing is I've been praying for my husband to get a new truck because I feel like he deserves one. And he's just been like really close-minded to it. Well, he just bought a truck last week.
Awesome.
So that thing manifested. And now I'm forgetting what the third one was, but
yeah, miracles.
Yeah, there's just miracles opening up.
Yeah. And also like we think that something has to come through a certain way, like, oh, I need the money to hire the landscaper. And it's like, no, it came through the time and the, like you said, vitality to do it yourself, which is definitely a version of money coming in because it's not money going out. It's something you're willing and able and wanting to do. It's very cool. Yeah. Well, we ran a little bit over time, but I want to make sure people know how to find you because I know there's probably people out there like, yes, I want to see what else is possible and how to pull more parts of myself back here and, you know, get that vitality, that fulfillment that feels like there's something between me and it right now. So what are the best places for people to get a hold of you?
Yeah. So my website is amberjanehealing.com. Super easy. You can book time with me if you're just exploring. You can also book a 20-minute consult and we can see what's happening and what I might think about it or suggest. The subscription where you get 2 30-minute psychic energy reading channel guidance sessions a month is on there. So you can go check that out. You also get a library of recordings that are VIP access. So I talk a lot about spiritual concepts and share rituals that you can do and other practices that can help just expand again to those places of more choices and more options.
Awesome. amberjanehealing.com. We'll put that link in the show notes for all y'all. Any last words of wisdom you want to leave people with?
My favorite thing to acknowledge is that when we heal, that the whole world has an ability to heal right along with us, and that it's our greatest contribution is finding the brilliance of ourselves. And this is a time of healing. That's why it's such a buzz. That's why it's expanding. That's why it's happening a lot. That's why it's talked about a lot, because this is a time for healing on the planet, because our tools are coming back to us. Our wise ways and our medicine people are coming back to us. And we have the freedoms to do that. The Inquisition is over in a lot of ways.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, just that understanding that when we heal, the rest of the world heals with us. So to acknowledge that when you change, the world can't stay the same. It can get better and better.
Yeah, it can get better. And that's a beautiful part of the work to be doing, instead of focusing externally all the time, to focus on how can you be in right relation to you? What do you need right now?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Amber Jane, not just for being on the show, but for doing the work that you're doing in the world. And also thanks for being on the show.
Yeah. Thank you, Molly.
Yeah. And anybody out there who's also interested in peace with money, you can go to wildheartsriseup.com/money, I think, and you'll find peace with money there. Or you can just go to wildheartsriseup.com and it's under the offerings page. But definitely sign up for some magic with Amber Jane and think about that subscription, because what an amazing way to, over time, keep elevating your energetic state and keep coming home to yourself. See what else is possible there. This episode ran a little long. Thank you for sticking with us, and we'll catch you next week for another episode of Tactical Magic. Whatever happens, keep asking big questions, taking bold action, because you are here for a reason.